Hello, Lillian. Happy birthday week, month.
Thank you so much.
Oh, there's a bit of a bounce.
Yeah. Better? Okay. Thank you. I'm so glad you came. I'm sick. I got sick on my birthday, which is not fun, but
Oh, wish you better.
thank God, we'll do the best that we can. So today, just to remind everybody, we are in the middle of Chassidut, Piety. And we were in the chapter 19 and we're on page 230. Okay, so here we go. Hi, Ruth. Welcome. We're just getting started.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Truth is, I'm sorry if I sound a little not good. I'm a little bit under the weather, but
כל הכבוד that you came on. Wish you a shlema.
thank you. I had to do housework today because my house was like trash, and I'm like, if I can make soup and do housework, I could do this.
Make it keep it to
That
half an hour or something. You don't have to.
Yeah.
Just half an hour.
Yeah, so we're gonna do it, and also this always makes me feel better. It puts everything in a good context. So let's
Hi, Shalami.
page 230.
Don't forget, it's Rosh Chodesh. Don't do too much housework. It's your holiday today.
Right. No, I things to write so that I could
Nice. Yeah.
Of a nourishing
That's
soup.
an excuse.
Took care, and I made some seed cookies for omega-3s, and I just took care of myself the best that I can, and vitamin C, and just
Beautiful. Zinc is very good as well.
Yes, zinc and sambucol, whatever, and unfortunately Sudafed, but okay. Ramchal require, okay, well, no. So let's do the actual Ramchal text first. Insofar as possessions are concerned, Chassidut requires providing assistance to ensure that no harm befalls another's belongings, and certainly to avoid being the cause of any harm himself, even if the effect would be remote. This applies both to an individual and public property. So we started this before. I think we're actually on the next page, because I remember we talked about public places and kind of what you see sometimes, and it's hard not to judge when you see somebody littering or maybe not being as careful with the environment or whatever it is that you care about, or someone who's not careful with another person's things. And yet we all know we have this within us a little bit. And, we just have to remember that as much as we all sometimes think we see somebody else and the way that they may be negligent around their belongings or someone else's belongings, we're judging, we all know that to whatever level we have it within us to not always be fully sensitive to. And I reminded myself this morning when my house was trashed from all the teenagers and everything else, I'm like, and you too, Lily, were once a teenager. And I remember you sharing a room with roommates in high school, and you also not being your neatest. So while you wish they would have left you a cleaner space while you were sick, it is what it is. And everyone's really trying their best. So, but for ourselves, Chassidut is recognizing that in ourselves, when we're borrowing something or using something, to really try to be extra cautious and careful to return things, to treat public property, library books, whatever it is. Someone leaves a plate at your house, right? I'm terrible. I ask people to please take it with them when they leave, because I hate feeling responsible for other people's belongings, and then they don't get it back, and it's so embarrassing. So really working on myself with these traits, and for other people, wherever you find you need to work on it. Insofar as spirit is concerned, a chassid will strive to do whatever he can to give pleasure to another person, and this will certainly avoid causing him any kind of distress. This endeavor also includes the pursuit of peace, which is the furtherance of good between man and his fellow man. So this is really important, right? When we're trying to be pious, we're trying to just bring good to the lives of other people, bring love to the lives of other people, not gossip, right? Which is also bringing unhappiness and talking, smack about other people. And yet I want to bring something up here at the end of this section, which is where's the line between this and people pleasing? Okay. Because I think for a lot of us, we hear this, we take it in, and we people please. It's not coming from super authentic aligned space. I want to talk about the nuanced difference between those two things as we go. And I'd like you guys to start thinking about it so we can discuss. Chassidut requires being the most considerate of other people, so much so that if one knows what will please another person and is reasonable to provide him with his wish, the chassid will do so. There are some people who thrive on being honored and recognized, and the chassid will do his best to show the desired respect, even to someone who may be beneath him. The Talmud states that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was always the first to greet others, not waiting for them to greet him first. Just as a person will try to bring pleasure to his loved one, so the chassid will have this attitude towards everyone. The Hasidic master, Rabbi David of Liov, once said, "How can people possibly think of me as a tzaddik when I feel more love for my own children than for other children?" Perhaps we cannot aspire to this level of Chassidut, but it does provide us with a concept of what Chassidut is all about. Not every person achieves the levels of learning and spirituality to know what is true good. As mentioned, some people crave being honored, which is a more thoughtful person understands the foolishness of such vanity. Nevertheless, the rabbi of Kotz said, to provide a fool with his foolish pleasure is also a mitzvah. An infant may wail bitterly because it wants a brightly colored block of wood, and although this is a trivial object to an adult, to the child it's all important, and the parent will gladly give him the object of his desire, unless, of course, it has sharp edges or is otherwise dangerous. And so it is with adults who have many desires to the more enlightened person or juvenile, but as long as they are not harmful in any way, the chassid will seek to provide that pleasure. What I really like about this is that it's really seeing people where they are and saying that to do good to another person isn't just to do good, which by some arbitrary or your spiritual values says is good, but to do good what's good in their eyes, even if it's something that, is on their level good. And you might not aspire to that good. Now, it could be a different love language than yours, right? It could be a different value than yours. If you're, value minimalism and they value stuff, you could value health and they value cookies. Okay, like whatever it is, to give love in the language of the person who's receiving it is a mark of a piety that we're aspiring to. And so that's the first way I want to create a nuance between people pleasing and giving at this level. Okay. It goes without saying that a chassid will assiduously avoid offending anyone. He will do everything possible to protect a person's dignity. It is related that Rabbi Akiva Eger had a guest at the Seder who accidentally spilled his cup of wine on the table. Instantaneously, Rabbi Akiva Eger shook the table with his knee, causing other cups to spill, to make it appear that the guest hadn't been clumsy and that the spillage was due to the shaky table. The significance of the above anecdote can be fully appreciated only if one realizes that Rabbi Akiva Eger had been tardy in shaking the table. Even by a few seconds, it would have been of no use, since by then the guest's clumsiness would have been evident. The novelty of his response was that it was so instantaneous, meaning that he was constantly on the alert to protect other people's dignity and did not have to pause to even momentarily figure out what to do. This is Chassidut at its finest. The Ramchal cites numerous examples from the Talmud as to the Chassidut of the sages, such as Rabbi Nechuya, who attributed his longevity to "I never derived honor at another person's expense, and a grudge against another person never accompanied me to bed." Rabbi Elazar said, "I observed the sanctity of the synagogue, never using it as a shortcut to my destination, and I never held myself superior to others." Rabbi Zariah said, "I never raised my voice at home. I never walked 4 cubits without Torah or tefillin, and I never took pleasure in someone else's failure." When Rabbi Nechunya entered the house of study, he would pray, "Protect me from making mistakes that might cause my comrades to ridicule me, lest they be punished for doing so." Rabbi Nechunya was not concerned that he'd be humiliated, but he did not wish to provide grounds that might cause others to sin. So here, let's just review for a second that when you notice something that would just bring someone else pleasure, it's a mark of piety and an act of service to Hashem to do that thing. Now, I think this is really beautiful in the context of the Shar Bitachon that we've learned and continue to learn. And that's where it says that God is loving unconditionally and wants you to be happy with the things that make you happy. And I think sometimes we question this. We think, oh, God only wants us to have the highest level spiritual happiness. He doesn't care that I really want this dress or these shoes or this car or this whatever, right? This vacation. But I think if he's telling us that we should care about each other's happiness, even in these small things, that goodness that we're giving to each other, right? We say we're channeling God. We're channeling God's goodness to be an agent of that for the other person. So obviously God is so concerned with even us getting the honor that we want, as long as it's not damaging to us, that he's even saying, hey, everybody who's volunteering to be my agent, be on the lookout for ways that you can just bring pleasure to another human being. And I think that so often we don't give ourselves credit. We think, what did I really do today? What did I really do today? Well, I made my daughter's favorite cookies. Yeah, but you know what? I should have done this, and I didn't do this email, and I didn't send this thing, or, I made my kid's bed, or I cleaned my house, or I did laundry, or I visited someone who's sick. Like, we don't always recognize the greatness of the things that we're doing on an everyday basis. You guys came to this class. I can't tell you how happy it makes me. I'm really not feeling well, and I've been looking forward all day to this class. And it really makes me happy that all of you guys are here. So I would curious, I'd love to hear from you guys. How do you differentiate between this kind of authentic, selfless, loving giving and people pleasing? Anybody have an insight?
For me, and it's funny because this is the subject for all of my groups this month. It's more intention, and how you feel about it. The shoulda, woulda, couldas can't be part of that. And I think it's however you personally define it, like obligation versus desire. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with people pleasing, but it depends on how you go about it. And also afterwards, how you feel about it. So even if you go forward with doing things that that the obligation type of thing is, if you move into that and you fulfill those and you're thinking you're doing this people pleasing, but somewhere along the way you picked up this little thing where you got fed well from it, or even you see others' happiness, what might have started as an obligation in a people pleasing way, you realize, oh, this actually isn't. It's bringing other people pleasure, therefore it brought me pleasure. And I feel like it's a very kind of back and forth type of thing. So it's really very much what's in your heart and in your mind, not necessarily the action. So
I think that's a brilliant insight. Thank you so much, Lala. Because, one of the things I think in my Thrive Well program, we talk about stopping the people pleasing, in the people pleasing that depletes you, the people pleasing where you sabotage other good things and other good things that you could be doing, either by then acting out in a way that hurts yourself, hurts your health, or hurts others, because you did this resentful thing that made someone else happy at your expense. And I think that even sometimes we might do something that was even at one time people pleasing, but we've either elevated ourselves or felt more connected. And all of a sudden that thing isn't people pleasing anymore. And it's not creating this whole negative loop. All of a sudden it's a positive loop. So I love that even the same exact behavior, we have an opportunity to elevate to a not people pleasing state, or to say no sometimes, or to say, I'll get back to that another time when I'm in a better state. I think that was really great. Anybody else have an insight into how you personally kind of navigate the difference between this kind of giving that we want to aspire to and people pleasing?
I want to add to that. That's the whole notion of looking at your intention, Lala, is spot on. And it's something that I do all the time. And for me, just to add to it is, am I trying to give for some sort of manipulation? Like, am I giving to get something? Or am I giving wholeheartedly with love? Really, because I do want to express express love in the person's love language. So it's a combination. I mean, it really is a high level, and it's just being present in, I guess, your motivations, and and in your, how clean are you being when you show up in relationship. So that was spot on for me.
So
Love
much.
that.
Thank you. Shulamit, do you have something to add too?
Very, very much what you just said. And then also, yeah, the point of being clean is exactly it. So to come from a clean place, how do you do that? For me, I tune into my body and I feel into it. And sometimes that takes a little time. So I'll give you an example. A friend of mine was coming from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and she's coming on Wednesday. And Wednesday is my day when I do Pilates, I do my dance class, I do my swimming. And she's coming just at that time. And my first thought was, oh gosh, she's going to be disappointed if I say no. I have to say yes. And I said to her, listen, let me think about it because I've got my classes. And then she put another layer of guilt on that and said, yeah, well, I'm canceling my classes just so that I can come and see you. And then I was like, oh, this doesn't feel clean at all. So I just needed to take some time over Shabbat to think about it. And I had to tune into my body because I have a history of people pleasing. That's how I grew up. And I tuned into, would I feel safe if I said no? I just tuned into the feeling of saying no to her, saying, look, I can't do it. I'm really sorry. I don't even have to give an excuse, but just like, not this time. It didn't feel safe. So I just kept breathing into it and just giving myself compassion and forgiveness for that little one who wants to please so much, and saying, I know you want to please her, but your fitness and your mental health and your emotional health are important first, and then you can be resourced to give other people that love. And when I felt safe, I then said to her, let me try and call the gym to see if I can work it out. And I found a way around it so that I can do the classes in the evening, but I'd done the work. Do you know what I'm saying? So it is really difficult, honestly. It's quite challenging. I want to please, I want to do the thing, and then afterwards I don't want to be resentful and depleted. So it has to work for me to say yes. And it has to be I think to myself, it's either a full yes or it's a no. Don't give people a half yes. That's not fair to them, and it's not fair to me. Anyway, that's as far as I got. There's probably another layer in there somewhere, but that's as far as I got with myself.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Lala, you have something to add?
So along with that, what we've been working on is people pleasing is so intertwined with boundaries. Exactly what Shalomit was saying is that, and I think for women especially, it is a very difficult thing because boundaries and obligations are so intertwined, especially with young children. And then you're doing that for so many years. It's, and you want to, but like it gets to a certain point where you're like, it's very difficult. So I think for women, I think we have an extra layer because we for sure are taught that we should be boundaryless in so many ways, especially as mothers and things. So I think that cleaning up your side and doing all of that your obligation to yourself is first and foremost, but that is incredibly difficult. But I do think as we make clearer boundaries with ourselves and with others, it makes it so much easier. When we can be clear with ourselves. But I think those two things are so intertwined, people pleasing and boundaries. I'm not sure which comes first.
Yeah, I also think, in addition to the women thing, there's a Jewish women thing. That's even another layer of that, because we're taught to be tzaddikas and give us, like run after people. And it's just, I don't know. It seems to me that I have to unlearn a lot of things that I was taught. And it's very difficult to extricate yourself from all the spaghetti of it.
I love what you just said, and which is why I thought when I read this, my first thought was we need to differentiate it from people pleasing. Because I don't know how many times anybody who's had any sort of Jewish education has learned this thought. What an amazing thing to be an agent of God and just bring pleasure to every single person around you, right? Just
And all
like
our camels.
pleasure fairy. But who's taking care of the pleasure fairy?
Mm.
Oh, Hashem is. So if Hashem is taking care of the pleasure fairy, that means that when you hit, that you need that 8 hours of sleep and the laundry's not done yet, and this thing isn't done yet, and this thing isn't done yet, even though those things can all be pleasure, like, other roles that we have to fill, we're off the clock. He's going to take over now and make sure that like things are going to happen. And I find that for me is where, as a Jewish woman mother, the line is so blurry.
Mm.
Oh, I'm sick and the house was trashed literally this morning. And I called up and I said to each of my kids, I said, really? Like, it's not okay that like you left the house like this. My husband was like, so go back to bed. I'm like, I can't heal and relax in a space that is not safe. This is not a safe space for me. And I have responsibilities. I can fulfill my responsibilities easily, even while I'm sick, when my space is clean. But you guys left like not in an okay way. And so I like put on my book and then I opened it up and I was tired to daven, and I saw it was also Rosh Chodesh. And it was the first time I've ever been like, oh, it's Rosh Chodesh. Like I have more to say. And I like pulled it together and I said, just do whatever you can do. And I had to, and they didn't even walk the dog. I had to take the dog on a walk with my coffee. And the whole time I'm like, you know what? I can actually do this. God, you actually woke me up with enough strength to do this thing. Let's get the house together. I made myself some soup and then I put myself back to bed. I didn't do a deep 100% clean. And I checked in with myself. Can I teach this class? I said, yes. Like, you did all this other stuff because it was necessary for your healing, but it didn't really fill you up. This is going to fill you up. Like, you're going to feel so much that you're looking forward to this. And my one other thing I'm doing tonight that I feel fills me up in the giving. And I feel like for me, how I navigate that people pleasing thing is really speaking out any resentment that I have about it and allowing it to be heard and allowing myself to feel whatever feeling is there. Like, allow myself to feel that moment of resentment that nobody was capable of doing what I'm sure they wanted to do, which is leave me a clean space and take care of me while I was ill. And instead of making it about that they don't love me enough, or I'm not worthy, like, or I am a bad mom, that I didn't train them to even be capable of doing this, like, everyone's doing the best they can. And this is the situation, and it's not what you wanted. And you're still going to be okay. And you don't have to do more than you need to. And you also don't have to sit and punish yourself by staying in an environment that makes it harder for you to relax and get better. And like I said, I think it's very nuanced, like everything that we're talking about. And we're so lucky that Lala's also made this her topic of the month. And I think it's also very important as we're going into Kislev and Hanukkah and this bringing light is having these real conversations about where, as a Jewish wife, mother, there is not a single thing that I do in my day that isn't in the service of something bigger than myself. I mean, I think that's true of every single woman on this call and every single woman who listens to this recording. There is not a single thing that I do that is solely for my selfish self, because part of me belongs to my husband, my children, my community, people I coach. Like, when I take care of myself, it's part of my taking care of everybody else. And I think that line is so fluid that it's so important to speak out all the feelings. Anybody else have anything you want to add to this before we continue? Shulamit.
Yeah, so I don't want to drag it on too long, because I know you want to I don't want to focus on it too long. But the other side of the people pleasing for me that I find difficult is how to say no. So for example, this one thing came up over the weekend with me. I'm sure it might resonate with some of you. Do you ever have that one friend who you're in a car with them and it's a long journey, and then they pick up the phone to somebody completely random, and for the whole journey they're having a very loud, noisy conversation with that other person, and you feel like completely like you cannot escape from it. You can't do your own thing or think or dream or. And so this one time I waited until the end, and when she put the phone down, I said to her, I would appreciate if you were to ask me first if that's okay, because I find it very difficult to do anything else in that space. And it was very loud, the conversation. I didn't really know if you wanted me to listen in or not, but either way, it wasn't anything to do with me. And I was just like, it was for half an hour. And then she got really upset with me. She goes, it's my car, and very defensive. And the people pleaser in me literally shriveled up. I was like, oh my gosh, I've offended her, and she was giving me a lift. So I don't know. It's just putting those boundaries in. It's hard. I have to keep working through it and thinking what is okay to say, what's not okay to say, how to say it, when to say it. I wish there were like proper rules that we could just all know. I feel a bit like on the spectrum with those things because I didn't grow up knowing them.
I think also the hardest thing about what you're saying is there are no rules because all of us are experiencing the world totally differently.
Yeah.
So like to another,
some people it wouldn't bother them at all.
it's crazy that is the case. I feel like I'm still discovering how true that is all the time, and it's constantly shocking that we're really all in completely parallel universes, not experiencing the same thing in the same moment.
I think that's why at a certain age you get to a point where you're like, you don't really care. Because everybody kind of gets to that point, at a certain your kids are gone, so you have the luxury to actually realize the value that you have as just a person, not a mother, not a wife, and so you have it no longer feels uncomfortable to say, oh, when we get in the car this time, can it just be us and not a phone call? Like, and the other person's like, oh, wasn't even aware they were doing it, kind of thing. And you held it for so long, you know. But I think like with age, that age comes wisdom. And also it's not just a wisdom, it's that beauty inside. Like the more we study this, I'm like, oh, that is what I was trying to feel, getting closer to Hashem, getting closer. As I get closer to Hashem, then I get closer to myself, then I understand my own value as a person. And so therefore, I'm able to say with ease, I would really love to be in this car with you. And and we have a conversation together. Or do you mind like last time we were in the car? Because but I think it takes like clearing out of a lot of the environment around you. I mean, I'd love to say that it just happens the more you do, but I think when your children are gone, it makes being with yourself, hearing your own thoughts, there's space for that and for valuing yourself. And I think that for me, doing this studying is really helping me feel more confident and calm in self-respect. Because I'm learning it's disrespectful to Hashem if I'm not respectful to myself. And so I feel like when I feel more grounded in that, it helps me. Like this is such a touch point on Sundays for me to move into my week because I have to remember it's really not, it's me, but it's not me. It's me with like this whole team and army or whatever. And that, yeah, and when I disrespect myself, it's kind of disrespecting Hashem. So if I sit in a car with someone and I'm like upset the whole time, either I have a choice to say something or I can maybe do my own thing because it isn't always easy to say things. But I do think as you get older, the more you learn, the more wisdom you have, and the more time and space you have. And I think like morning meditation check-in prayer helps guide you throughout the day with that too.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Okay. We're at the bottom of 233. For the chassid, Gemilah Chassidim, act of kindness, is all important. After all, the word chassid is derived from the word kindness, and the Talmud considers Gemilah Chassidim to be a pillar of the universe. Rava says, as a descendant of Abraham, can be identified 3 traits: mercy, modesty, and Gemilah Chassidim. Hence, the latter is the essence of Judaism. Gemilah Chassidim is superior even to tzedakah, because the latter is accompanied with one's possessions, whereas Gemilah Chassidim is enacted with one's true self. The Talmud says that if one is merciful to others, God is merciful to him. God acts toward a person correspondingly as the person acts towards others. Hence, the one who forgives is himself forgiven. If one insists on exacting stern justice, God will demand stern justice of him. Inasmuch as no person is without sin, how can one possibly avoid a harsh judgment? Only by Gemilut Chasadim, whereby he will merit a similar divine attribute toward himself. I think this is also something that we see again and again in true psychological acts of, like, you know, whether it's ACT therapy or CBT therapy or anything that talks about a loving and therapeutic, compassionate form of therapy, talks about, you know, the mirror. One of my friends is a marriage coach, and she did this exercise once where, you know, you hold up a mirror and there's a spot on your shirt and you believe it's on the mirror, and you clean the mirror and you clean the mirror and you clean the mirror, and you are sure that you are clean and it's the mirror that's dirty, and that is so much of what we experience in our reality. And so when we see things in other people, to immediately don't try to clean the mirror. First, look at yourself. First, look down at your shirt. Is the stain here? And it's being reflected to me in other people. And I have to say this, especially when it comes to seeing your husband and your children and things that are happening around you as signs to you and as like complete divine intervention, providence, like something I've really taken into myself, sometimes to maybe too much of an extreme. But like really, if something's happening around me, I always think like, oh, it must be in my shirt. Like, let me look down at my shirt and see where I have a piece of that Mita. Like, oh, it annoys me, like we said about the cleanliness when people leave things all over the place. But like, come on, like I was sick in bed and it took me 2 days till I went and got another plastic bag to put all my dirty tissues in. Instead, it was like picking them up and just throwing them in the garbage. And I know it annoys my husband when there's dirty tissues like there, and like took me like a day to like get the bag and like do it in the way I know he likes it. Like, but he didn't say anything to me, even though for sure it annoyed him for a day, you know? But he was compassionate. And like, am I that compassionate when it's his dirty laundry on the floor, right? Like, always thinking like, okay, I have some part of this Mita to work on at whatever level I have it to work on. The same way I have to be compassionate with myself, and I know I'm working on stuff. They're also working on stuff. This might not be the top of the priority list of things they're working on, or they're not at this step yet. And I feel like that's what he's saying here. The other thing it reminds me of is they said that, you know, how do you decide whether you're going to go to heaven or you're going to, how long because we don't believe in a hell, but we believe in a washing machine process. So what setting on the washing machine you're going to be on, it says that you're going to watch the video of your own life and not know it's you. And the level that you've refined your character traits in judgment is the level to which you will pronounce the judgment on yourself. And that's what's going to decide how long in the cleaning cycle you're going to need. And so the more work that we do on judging others favorably is really the work we're ultimately doing on judging ourselves favorably.
Wait,
So
is there a source for this, Lily? Is that from here?
It's not from here. It's very much a very famous thing, and I will try to find a source for it. But I heard it many, many times in my.
I have heard that that's what you will be judged by your own lens, but I've never heard it to be that specific before. That sounds really interesting. Like, wow.
Yeah. So I've heard it many times in many different forms, but that's exactly the idea, that the level that you've worked on that inner judgment is therefore because you're not going to know it's you, and you're just going to judge this other person's life. And so the more that we can continue to judge others, you know, like it's just a constant reflection of like, right? I think it's something I really try to work on. And it's something that's going to be a life's work. Okay. The Ramchal reinforces his earlier criticism of the popular misconception of Chassidut, since based on the word chesed is no way fasting, lengthy confessions, mortification, any of those things, since they are not acts of kindness and no one benefits. The true chesed champions chesed in every possible way. The Ramchal goes so far as to say that if one is derelict in Gemilah Chassidim, erase questions about his Jewish authenticity as a descendant of Abraham. The Ramchal provides an additional motivation for Chassidut. And as much as no human being can be totally free of sin, how can one expect? Oh, we just read that. Okay. We just read that. The Talmud relates that Rabbi Yehuda ben Nasi, who redacted the Mishnah, was punished for a failure to be kind to an animal. A calf was being led to the slaughter, ran off and hid under his cloak. The rabbi turned the calf over to the butcher, saying, "Go for this purpose to which you were created." And a divine edict was therefore issued, because you had no mercy on an animal, no mercy will be shown to you. And he was subjected to a very prolonged, painful illness. One day, the housekeeper was about to sweep away the nest of tiny animals, and Rabbi Yehuda stopped her, allowing the young to remain with the nest. A divine edict was then heard: because you are considerate of animals, you will be shown mercy, and his illness left him. Whereas plants are not capable of feeling pain, a chassid respects these as well and does not abuse them. Rav Shaga Fievel Mendelovitz was walking with some students, and one of them tore off a leaf from a tree. The rabbi said there are 4 levels of existence: the inanimate, the vegetative, the live, and the human. Each one should be raised to a higher level, so that an inanimate earth nurtures the vegetation which is eaten by the animal, which provides food and labor for man, who can dedicate his life to God. Using vegetation in a way is an elevation, but tearing a leaf off a tree for no constructive purpose at all is demoting the vegetative to the inanimate, and that is not the direction in which a person should be heading. I think that's a very, very powerful thought. And again, I think is very clear to where we're going with this act of compassion, which is noticing that mental health is a thing. Seeing, right? Like if we're going to worry about an animal, sensitivity to an animal who's going to be slaughtered, to say, like, of course, he's experiencing pain, trauma, fear, to really be sensitive to other people. I think especially today, everyone's walking around with such a huge bag. And so again, even when somebody did something that seems hurtful to you or inconsiderate to you, to understand they have a bag. They have a bag. There's nobody without a bag. And I think this year has demonstrated more than any other year that I've been alive, how much we are unaware, and also how powerful these bags that everyone's carrying are, and how much of the behavior we don't like from other people isn't behavior they choose, from a clean place. It's behavior that is weighted with a lot of stuff we can't know and fully understand. And how much this compassionate work is really, I think, the work that we're meant to be doing today. The second division of Chassidut concerns the manner of performance. There are 2 chief areas, right? We said yira, reverence for God, ahava, love of God, which subsume many particulars. Reverence is humbling ourselves before God, humility in approaching your service, and the honor accorded to mitzvot. Included in love of God are joy, communion, zeal. The chief aspect of yira is the reverence for the majesty of God, which a person must be mindful of when praying or performing a mitzvah. He is doing so in the presence of a King of Kings. It should be noted, whereas earlier the Ramchal cited the varieties of yira, such as fear of punishment, fear of God, here he refers only to the loftiest level of yira, that real sense of awe, of reverence, contemplation of the majesty and greatness of God. Those other varieties of yira are not mentioned here because now he's discussing the yira of Chassidut, of one who has mastered those traits and is now at a stage of sincere devotion and relationship with God, wishing to do only that which he believes will please God. This individual is far beyond the juvenile concept of fear of punishment. And I know we had so much discussion back at the beginning of this book about fear of punishment. And I think he has proved us right in that once you read the Gate of Trust and you are in a deep relationship with your Creator, having these conversations about the fear of punishment feels really weird. You're like, but he's my father, he's my king. Like, if I'm messing up, it's not being afraid he's going to whack me isn't going to stop me messing up. I need clarity. I need to clean up my trauma. I need to clean up my side of the street. I need to feel his love. I need to feel my love of him. That's what's drawing me closer. I'm not being motivated by fear of punishment. Like, and I think that really speaks to what he's saying right here. Anybody have anything they want to add to that? Okay. It should be noted, contemplating about God can be quite a challenge to the human mind. All our intellectual faculties deal with finite, measurable entities. Our experience doesn't really provide us with a reference point for something that has no beginning and no end and is immeasurable. We may be overwhelmed by the astronomical numbers as we talk about a star being billions of light years away. We're like traveling at 186,000 miles per second, while an enormous finger that's virtually unmanageable. It is nevertheless a measurement. One has a large enough blackboard, one could write an actual number of miles. Concerning infinity, however, there is simply no grasping it at all. Even astronomical numbers cited is insignificant to contemplating about God. In fact, since human mind knows only finite, it has been said that whatever we can think about God is not true of him. If we can conceive of something, it must be finite, and nothing that is finite is true of God. Our traditional theologians therefore state that we can only contemplate the works of God, and about those traits that are apparent to us or have been made known to us through prophetic revelation, but we don't really have knowledge of God himself. Try as we might, we are limited to the human concepts and human terms, even when speaking about God as all-knowing, all-powerful, and omnipresent. But even as these limitations of our thinking, we can stand in utter awe of a being so great that he defies any conceptualization, and that the Supreme Being wishes to relate to us, to hear our prayers, to receive our service. Contemplation of this should result in a profound sense of reverence, and self-effacement before God. Okay. Let's see. We want to do one more section. I think we're going to continue this tomorrow because it's going to go off a little bit into talking more about abstract and idol worship and all kinds of things that try to make abstract God like really physical. And I'll say one thing, I think that the advent of quantum science and anybody who's learning anything about quantum whatever, I think it's really interesting. I'm taking this really cool course right now on Mind Valley called Quantum Love by Dr. Laura Berman, and it's really, really interesting about taking this concept of quantum reality and your personal vibration and seeing how it impacts relationships and learning how to practice biofeedback to be aware of when you're triggered on in terms of a quantum scale of how the emotions and the mind impact people around you and impact yourself. So it's really cool. I really enjoy Mind Valley. So if anybody's
Oh my gosh, you and I, Lily, are still on the same page. I've been studying quantum mechanics forever. I find it so fascinating. And it's very relatable to Kabbalah as well.
Yeah, very much.
Very relatable. It's like if you think about the three fields of space, time, and love.
I really feel that it's like science and God just being like, yeah, all this stuff is true. And like, and even now we're only discovering like the tiniest thumbnail of a cell, but I think it just makes so much sense when this like concept of like God recreating the world at every moment with every possibility, when you understand that all possibilities really exist at one time. And I'm also was a science fiction nerd and still am. So like, I love that stuff, and to see how it's really real, I feel like it really blows my mind in a really cool way. So I think that's it for today. Anybody have something that they took from today that they're going to apply their week, or something that's sitting with them they're going to keep percolating on from today's session? I'll tell you what I'm going to take away. Something I've been really thinking about: in all good deeds are the same. There's no hierarchy of acts of kindness. That's something I'm taking away. Sometimes I want to make a hierarchy. Well, I did this and this today, but that wasn't really like a worthy act of kindness. That was just stuff I had to do. But like this other thing that I didn't get to, or this thing that I did, you know, that's really an act of kindness. All this other stuff, that's just stuff that like I have to get done. And then sometimes I really try to get in there and be like, no, this is an act of kindness that I'm doing right now. This is an act of kindness. And still it feels like there's a priority list, a hierarchy, and really being where it's all the same. It's no different. It, you know, if I'm getting paid or I'm not getting paid to do this act of kindness, I'm doing it as an act of kindness. It doesn't matter if I think this thing is a higher skill level or a lower skill level, to a thing to do. It's an act of kindness. It doesn't matter if it's to me or to another human being. It's all the same act of kindness. And sometimes it's even more challenging when it's to me and not to another human being. And I think just continuing to erase those barriers for me is the work that's kind of being inspired, and that I'm working on, also thinking in this Chassidut perspective. Anybody else have something that they're working on, they want to share, or whatever they just want to take from today?
Well, I don't mean to drop a bomb, but I'm engaged.
Stacy.
It's exciting, but also hard.
Wow. Mazel
Lovely,
tov.
Mazel tov. That's very
That's so
nice.
exciting.
Thank you. But we had a really hard Shabbos.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a hard night processing last night. And I believe we did come to a resolution somewhat. He got it, but and we're gonna be speaking with a Rob this morning.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, you talk about, first of all, I so appreciate, Shulamit, you talking about, you know, how you feel in your body, right? Because, you know, I'm quite aware that the body doesn't lie. And my friend who I was talking with last night, you know, reminded me of that also. So to listen to myself and, you know, yeah, I guess why I'm saying this is I really just need you guys on my journey right now. You know, I wasn't gonna say anything, especially if Chayaleh is on the phone right now. So Chayaleh, you can't say anything. And you know, but I don't know, like super hard stuff. Super hard stuff. You know, and I don't know. It's just yeah, I have to I have to keep breathing, and I have to keep reminding myself that, you know, I'm still connected to Hashem, and I still have you know, if I can connect on a
First breathe. First breathe.
first breathe, right,
The connection will come through the breath.
right.
If you want me to do a little breathing with you, you can always call me, you know?
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
that's what I do.
Okay,
I get it. I get it. It's so relatable and it's so understandable. And thank you for sharing that with us, Stacy. It's also very exciting. So
Yes.
thank you.
yay.
It's been a long time. I've been alone for a long time.
Yeah,
We
I
are
hear that.
very excited for you, and we're here for you. And, you know, Shlamit offered to do breath work for you. You know, we're all here for you. You know, you can write to. In our group, you know, I think you have all of our numbers privately.
Yeah.
Like, you can always reach out for anything you need.
Yeah.
And let's, I don't know, I'm all for, let's put today's learning, okay, to Stacy, okay? And it should be an elevation for clarity
Amen.
of mind and clarity of heart, and consonance between the two, where your thoughts and your heart are going to beat together. And like we said, everything is hard. Like you can't, we can look at things and, we're not 18 anymore, or 21 with no baggage. Getting engaged is all like, lollipops and unicorn. And, a mother-in-law who wants to plan your wedding, like got adult issues and adult religion and all that stuff. But like, it doesn't make it, the broken pieces are only more beautiful, right? For what they are, because they're not really broken. They're just pieces that haven't been put together yet into a new shape. And I love that video where they show I forgot which Asian culture it is. So not
Kintsugi with a gold.
old, and they
Yeah.
put it together.
I
I
think
think
I've said it right. It might just be some kind of Japanese food. I
Right.
think I got
Japanese,
I might have got that totally wrong.
be so
I think it's
uneducated,
Kintsugi.
wrong Asian culture, but there is okay, but there is one, and this idea that the broken pieces of a dish, they put real gold and they put them back together. You know what I'm talking about? If you don't, look it up, and it makes it even more beautiful. And that's what relationship should be, and it should be heart and mind. And our learning today should elevate it, that it should be a constant chesed, him to you and you to him, and both of you to all of your families and to your community. Should be something that we look forward to celebrate, and we look forward to getting updates on. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You got the job. This should work out too.
Amen.
Amen. Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
And forward to seeing all of you guys next week.
Thanks so much.
Hi, Lily. Thank you for holding such a lovely
Thank
space.
you.
You guys make the class. Thank you guys. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.